All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Deathstalker War by Simon R. Green. This is book number 3 in his Deathstalker series of some 8 books or so, 9 books, I don't know what it is. I've got them all right here. But I have reviewed books 1 and 2 in the past. So if you want, book 1 is just titled Deathstalker. So if you want to watch the reviews of the first 2 books before you watch this one, all you need to do is type in my last name, Durfee, into your YouTube search bar, and then Deathstalker. And those reviews, through some sort of pagan sorcery that I don't understand, will magically appear upon your television screen, if you so choose. Otherwise, you can just continue to watch this review of book number 3. So we've got, it came out in 1997. I think the series started around 95, and for about 8 or 9 years, he wrote 1 book a year in the series. So it was like a late 90s, early 2000s series. Let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. I think these covers are dope as shit. I mean, each one of them has a painting by someone who I do not know who it is. The signature is there, but I can't read it. And they're not listed anywhere in the book or on the back cover or anything. But they all have the same cover design, all with the same cover artist. And if you look here, they all seem to, the spines all match up. So it looks like a really good looking series once it's on your bookshelf. So A+ for the cover design and graphic illustrations and the illustration by the artist, whoever it may be. So let's talk about this book. What did I think of it? This is one of my favorite science fiction sagas of all time. This is non-stop action space opera, bloody mayhem, unlike anything you've ever read. This whole series, from the beginning chapter to the very end, it is relentless in its action, in its death, in its bloody gore, in its crazy situations, and everything about it is just spectacular. It's very R-rated. It is not like Star Wars, Kenobi television series or anything. It's very R-rated, which makes it fun. It's almost like watching The Sopranos on spaceships or something like that. That's a really wild comparison, but it kind of works in a way, because there is kind of like mafia stuff in. There's everything. Simon R. Green put everything he could think of in his brain into these books, from mafia to gladiators to spaceships to space lasers to space swords to Kill Bill type weird action scenes with it's just over the top. Everything. It's like, how can I write a space opera that is just unapologetically outlandish in every way possible, but makes sense, and it's a good story with fantastic characters, and every character has a fantastic name, like Deathstalker. With book 3, I've only got one gripe. I don't know why book 3 does this. None of the other books in the series do this, but book 3 has 0. No, I take it back. It has 1 chapter break. Literally, there are no chapter breaks. It's like there's no chapter 1 through 53. There's no chapter 1 through 8. There's just chapter 1 and chapter 2. And that's crazy, because there's nowhere to stop, and there's nowhere to stop. I mean, when you read a book, sometimes you get another chapter, I'll stop at the end of that chapter, because that's a chapter break. And so it kind of relaxes you. That's not the case. There are no chapter breaks. There's nowhere to stop reading. You just have to stop in the middle of whatever you're doing. Okay, so anyway, that's my only gripe of this book. And it's only in this book. The other books have actual chapters. Okay, so Owen Deathstalker is our main character. He's kind of like this rich kid type of thing. He's sort of a prophesied to save the world type of thing, but he comes from a rich family, like a noble family. But he throughout his adventures in the first 2 books, which we won't get into, He survives. Any character that I mentioned in this, well, anyway, because a lot of characters die in the first 2 books. A lot of characters die overall. But anyway, Owen Deathstalker is still around because he's the main guy. That's why it's called the Deathstalker series. So let's just assume this motherfucker lived through all 8 books. Okay, anyway, he's landing his starship / yacht because he's got a badass starship like the Millennium Falcon, but it's bigger, badder-assed, and looks like a really expensive fucking yacht. And that's the type of guy he is. But he lands his starship / yacht on a planet, and the starship is named the Sunstrider 2. Yeah, there was a Sunstrider, but I won't tell you what happened to that. But now there's the Sunstrider 2. But anyway, he lands this starship on the planet Mistworld, which we have visited in previous 2 books. Mistworld is kind of like the Mos Eisley. You know how Mos Eisley was described as a hive of scum and villainy? Well, this whole planet, Mistworld, is described as a hive of scum and villainy. It's where all the bad guys go to hide out and do bad guy things and just be left alone. However, the powers that be, Lady Lionstone or whatever her name is, it's probably here. Anyway, she's like the kind of the she's like the ruler of the universe, but kind of a bad person. She's like the Darth Vader of the universe, has all of her henchmen. Well, anyway, there's going to be a war, and it's going to take place on Mistworld. But nobody knows this yet. And Deathstalker, he ends up with his starship on Mistworld. So there's a lot of characters are on his starship with him. He's got a kind of a crew of a lot of cool, like Jack Random is Jack Random may or may not be real. I don't know how to explain that any more than that. People are trying to figure out, is this really the Jack Random that we knew in the past? Because he looks like it, he acts like it, but there's just something a little bit off. And then Ruby Journey is part of the crew. She's a bounty hunter, because we always have to have a bounty hunter in a badass space opera. And then Hazel d'Arc is probably one of my favorite characters. She's a bootlegger. She teams up with Deathstalker, Owen Deathstalker, pretty early on in book 1. And then Jenny Psycho is another character. Then there's Oz. Oz is a dead AI, artificial intelligence that was killed off early in the books, in the first book, and then I have spoilery for that. But he's still alive, kind of. He still is there. I mean, he's just an artificial intelligence thing that's dead but still around. Toby and Flynn, this is where these are some new characters. Toby and Flynn, they are reporters, and they are going to report. They know that there's going to be this war on Mistworld, and they are going to be reporters on the ground in the middle of this war. And that's what we get. We get them. They the war is broadcast to the universe, and those are the 2 guys that are down there taping and reporting on the Battle of Mistport. And that's why it's called Deathstalker War, is because the whole book revolves around Mistport, the city that's on Mistworld, and the war that's taking place on this world, and how it affects not just the people that are on the planet, but then the other characters that are off the planet, like all the gladiators and assassins that are on the planet where the main bad person lives and rules from her throne. And there we've got like Kit Summerisle, we've got all these different gladiators and assassins and vampire-like people and mobster-like people that are on that world, and how the war affects them on that world and all that. There's Lord Valentine, I don't think he's a vampire. Well, he might be a vampire. He's very vampire-esque. Let's just say that. And then, or is it Prince Valentine? There's a lot of there's a ton of characters in here. There's a lot of characters in these books. And it's just such a cool story. And so I give Deathstalker War, I gave the first 2 like 10s out of 10s. I'm going to give this one a 9.5 out of 10, just because I couldn't stop at a chapter break to stop, and there were no chapter breaks. I think I might have mentioned that. There were no chapter breaks. But anyway, 9.5 out of 10 for Deathstalker War, number 3 in the Deathstalker space opera series.